In this lesson, I'm going to be talking about project files and databases. If you're coming from another program like Final Cut or Premiere Pro, then you know what a project file is, but you may not know what a database is and how it can be beneficial to your editing workflow. Well, don't worry, because in this lesson, I'm going to be explaining all of this. Now, this might not be the most exciting part of this course, but it's very, very important to understand all of this so that you'll always know how to set up your projects in a way that works best with your workflow. Okay, so a project file is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a file that you can open to access your project and continuously save changes to your project on that one file. Now in DaVinci, if we want to make a new project file, you need to first select a database to create it in. A database is essentially just an enclosing folder that can hold tons of project files, backups of those project files, and all the other information needed to link media to your project and get them going. Now, a major reason that databases were created was so that you can access the same asset libraries across all of the projects within your database. That might sound a bit confusing, I understand, but let me give you an example of how this can be useful. So let's say you make YouTube videos and you constantly use the same assets for all those types of videos. An intro animation, sound effects, graphics, the stuff that stays constant between project to project. It's in your best interest to make every new YouTube project file within the same database. That way, the asset libraries you've developed from your previous project files will translate over to your new project file, and you'll be ready to start editing right away without having to import all those assets each time. Now, the asset libraries I'm specifically talking about are the power bins and power grades, but that's not important for you to understand right now. Each of those features has an in-depth video explaining how they work later on in this course. Now, it's totally okay if you don't fully understand this right now. Let's jump into DaVinci and I'll walk you guys through exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to open DaVinci Resolve, and we are presented with this window. It just opened up in my other monitor. This is the first window that you're going to see when you're opening up DaVinci. Now, you might not see this row on the left here, and that's because this button is not active. So you'll probably be presented with this, and it's just going to have Untitled Project. Now in the bottom right, we can see that we have three buttons. We have New Project to make a new project, New Folder. We can create folders within this space as well. And then we can also just click Open to open up projects that are selected in here. Now, these right here are two project files. Now, the databases that I was talking about before, those can be visible by clicking on this little button right here. That will show us all the databases to the left. Now, right now, you guys are seeing all the databases that I've created so far that are currently linked to my computer, because you can link and unlink databases, which is not that important right now. But we can see all of my databases here to the left. You will probably only have one database here, which is going to be your local database. Now, the local database is the one that lives on your computer, and it's the default database that opens up within DaVinci. Now, in this local database, you can see a bunch of different projects that I worked on in this database. Now, up here in the top right, we have two different viewing options. Right now, we're in the icon view, but we can select the list view to see everything in a list. We also have the option to search for specific project files within your database up here. This could be handy if you have tons of project files within one database. But in this case, we don't have that many, so we don't have to search for anything. Now, like I said before, a database shouldn't be seen as a project file. A database is essentially a main folder that holds several other folders that contain information. So if I go to this database here, the local one, if I can right click on it, reveal it in my Finder, and it's brought up right here, we can see it's highlighted this folder right here. If we click into it, we have Resolve Projects, and if we click into here, we have some more folders. So if you go into Users, we go into Guest, Projects, we can see all of these different projects in here. Now, we don't actually have the project files within the database yet, because those are DRP files, DaVinci Resolve project files. We just have these .db database files within these folders here. We also have a bunch of other stuff in these folders that is not important. You're not going to have to know what it is, but that is essentially what a database is. It's just an enclosing folder that contains a bunch of other folders and a bunch of data about the project files within that database and all the information that it needs to link the project files to the media for all of those projects. Now, one important thing to keep in mind is that the database doesn't actually contain any of the media within your project. It just contains information on where to go to find the media that is found within your project files. So knowing this, it's important for me to keep my database in the same place as all of my other media, so that way everything is in one place. So when I'm plugging in my hard drive and I'm opening up my database and my project files, everything is in the same place. I don't have to look for it in other drives and stuff. I like to always structure my projects in this way because then I don't have to deal with having unlinked files later on and trying to search for media on different drives and stuff like that. So the way that I like to personally work within DaVinci Resolve is to create a new database for every new project that I'm working on. So let me show you how I would do that. So in my Finder here, we can see this is the project I recently shot with OnePlus. It was completely shot on a phone. And I have the folder structure right here. I have video, project files, and photos. Now within project files, I don't have anything, but in here, I would create a new folder for every program that I'm using within this project. So if I'm using After Effects, I would create a new folder for After Effects. If I'm using Premiere. And for DaVinci, I'll create a new folder here called DaVinci. So now that we've created that new folder within our project files, let's go back into our project manager here in DaVinci. And in the bottom left corner, we can select New Database. Now what we can do is create a new database within this DaVinci folder. So let's give it a name first. We'll call it OnePlus. And one thing to keep in mind is we can't make spaces in here. If I press the space bar, it doesn't do anything. So you got to use underscores, and we'll call this one example. And then we got to choose the location we want to save the database to. So let's click Browse. And let's locate the new folder that we just created. So that's going to be in OnePlus Phone Project, Project Files, DaVinci, and we're going to click Open, and we're going to click Create. Now it's going to take a second. It's going to create that new database over here. And now within this database, we are able to create a new project. Now let's go into the Finder window here. Let's open up DaVinci and see what it made. So it made a Resolve Projects folder, and in here we have those same folders that I showed you guys before in the local database. It's not important for you guys to understand what's going on within the database folder here. All you need to know is that it's organized in a way so that the database can locate all the media and all the assets, everything within the project files to make everything work. So now that we're in this new database, let's create a new project. So let's hit New Project, and we're given this little window here, and let's give it a name. So we'll call this OnePlus and hit Enter. And once we've done that, we are presented with the cut page here in DaVinci Resolve. So this is the DaVinci Resolve interface with no media in it. Now, if we ever want to go back to that project manager window, we can simply go down here to this little house icon down here, or we can press Shift-1, which is the shortcut for that. And we are presented with the project manager here. It's important to know that you can access the project manager at any time because you can go back in here, create new projects. You can simply just click New Project, create something completely different. And you can also create new databases, cycle between different databases, this is where you see all of your different projects. Now, you're probably noticing that some of my databases have this little triangle to the right of them, and that basically means that DaVinci can't access those databases right now, and that's simply because those databases were created on external hard drives, which my computer is not connected to right now. And that's totally fine. I know that if I want to access any of those databases, I'm going to have to plug in the hard drives that those databases are located on. So now that we have two project files in one database, we know that those asset libraries I was talking about before can be shared between those project files. And as we update one of those asset libraries, it's also going to be updated on the other one as well. This is something that we're going to be diving into later on in the course, but it's important to understand why we are creating this database and why we would want to create multiple project files within one database. So that's it for this video. Project files and databases, really important that you understand this. Take notes. Make sure that you retain this information because it is very important. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next one.